You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV Silicon Valley After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV Silicon Valley After Show.
Hello, welcome to AFTERBUZZ TV. This is the Silicon Valley After Show. I'm Sophie Schillaci. With me today is my very handsome co-host.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. JB Zimmerman.
Our fearless leader, Jeff Mazers, is out of the office today. He is gallivanting around New York.
Indeed, but don't worry, we've got a lot of good stuff for you tonight.
We sure do. Kicking things off with a little flow rider, a little toga.
Of course.
Always fun.
Always down for a toga party.
What did you think of the Silicon Valley toga party?
I was a little worried just based on how they've acted in social situations before, but I think they handled themselves pretty well. I mean, I think Richard, by the way, overindulged slightly, got into a little bit over his head.
I don't know that Richard handled himself appropriately, but that's why we love him. And I love that, you know, Richard got just so drunk and he had this very bromantic moment with Erlich, which was pretty amazing.
Many, I think, caught on tape.
Yes, and I'm so glad it was caught on tape because we didn't get to actually see it at first. It was played back for us on a cell phone video, as so many drunken nights are. So, you know, he is asking Erlich to be a board member. Bad move, good move.
Surprising move. I think that's the last thing he expected to wake up from when that hangover is adding another partner. I mean, that whole interaction with the lawyer was kind of a jargon that he didn't even understand, and he was just kind of signing blindly. Sure. So to hear that, I think, was a surprise, but in the end, seemed to work out.
It seemed to work out in the end. It was a little dicey there for a while, as anything with Erlich seems to be. I kind of loved that we see Richard in his little bunk bed, in his little lofted bed, just so hungover. And then Erlich comes in with the breakfast tray, and he's kind of like, "Hey, honey," and it's the closest thing I think Richard's gonna get to an awkward morning after, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That humor was not lost on me. How did you feel about that?
I like that a lot. I mean, I thought a lot about the old college days, waking up in a bunk bed above your desk, you know, covered in
It looks like a dorm room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I obviously did not get the breakfast in bed treatment.
I didn't either, for that matter.
Yeah,
so.
It's a shame. I think that would have helped.
Yeah.
But Erlich definitely seemed to come into a kind of protective father role a little bit, more than a friend. Kind of showed what his purpose is a lot more in this episode than in previous ones.
Sure. And with Big Head over at Huli, that seems like there's room for a new BFF for Richard, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Big Head's role sort of took a back seat, and it was surprising to see that. I don't know if there's going to be a lot more room for him as a character. He's kind of taking the annoying role where he's just being phased out, not just in his own storyline with his company,
right,
but also as a friend.
Right. And if you look at the posters, all the key art for the show, you know, Big Head's not on there. Jared's on there, which was a little bit confusing for me when I first watched the pilot, you know, seeing Big Head in the group, but seeing Jared on the posters, I was like, huh, well, something's going to change there, which obviously it has. But let's move on to Big Head. He has some things happening. Isn't it a little bit sickening how much money they're paying him, and they're just like, we're going to phase you out. No more work for you.
Right. I think that's just a comment on the industry itself. So many companies get so large and they don't have, like Facebook, for example, doesn't really have a revenue stream. So they just eat up smaller companies and make it off that.
Right.
Sort of the same mentality here. I think Google, it's sort of a commentary on that, eating up smaller companies, even if it's just a competition that they might have. They'll buy them basically, so they don't have that, and just it's cheaper for them to pay them $600,000 a year and not have to worry about the competition.
That's so crazy. It's cheaper. We're like, oh, we'll keep you on.
Yeah, exactly.
But
you can throw away $600,000.
Right.
I think you're doing pretty well.
And I loved how defensive Big Head got when he was in Human Resources, and he was like, no, I have a 3-year contract. And they're like, nobody's losing their contract. Right. Don't even worry about it. Too funny. But a little bit of a rift we're seeing, it seems like, between Big Head and Richard, former BFFs.
Yeah, and it seemed when he came in and sort of wanted to catch up and they were not into it at all, it seemed that they were definitely drifting away.
Given, I think Richard was under a lot of stress at the time. I can totally understand that.
Yeah, I think we've all had those moments when we're under a deadline, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think they're going to do with Big Head?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot left to do. I mean, if he doesn't have to contribute to the project at all, there's not really a lot of information he can supply to help his former friends.
That was what I was thinking too.
Exactly. We talked a lot about that last time, and I'm not really sure that he can be the spy that we wanted him to be.
Right. And I'm actually wondering, because that first scene with him, we see him in there and he doesn't know anything about Richard's program. And I was wondering to myself, does he actually not know? Because during his interview, he was very much like, oh, Richard's so much better than me.
He pulled the old smile and nod.
Very unapologetic about that. But it also felt a little bit like he was protecting his friend, which I imagine is the sense that the people at Hulu got.
Definitely. I think that they knew what they were doing. I mean, obviously, Gavin Belson is a very calculating person. So initially, he made the move just to take him away from the team.
Sure.
And then at the slightest hint of a problem arising, he just nipped it in the bud and did what he always does, which covered his ass pretty much.
Can we talk about the brogrammers? Came back. I love that. And they introduced us to, the show, introduced us to a bro lawyer as well.
Course, yes.
So there's a lot of bros happening on the show.
Definitely. I liked that character actually a lot. It was interesting to watch him in the first scene just sort of lay out all these things, and he really just did not care for Richard at all. I mean, he would ask him a question and then immediately start playing guitar. It was like his mind was just on something else completely.
Oh, right. And we start to find out that, Peter Gregory has more than one baby turtle that's going to the ocean. We found out not only in that meeting, but in the party as well. They were talking about his other investments.
Right.
How many do you think there are?
That's a good question. I mean, he's a venture capitalist, so I'm sure he has a lot of companies up his sleeve. Definitely.
Sure.
Curious how they proceed with this in the future episodes, because as we were talking about, the actor, Christopher Evan Welch, passed away last December. And that was during filming, you were saying?
Yeah, we need to apologize to you guys. We, last week, were under the impression that he had completed filming on the first season, but that's actually not true. He had completed filming on up to episode 5, which this was episode 4. So in theory, next episode could be his last. Again, we don't know in post, how they're going to change it. We could see him again. They could definitely get creative with what they had shot.
True, they could have shot some scenes out of order. Hopefully, next episode won't be his last.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. I mean, we would love to see as much of him as we possibly can.
Yeah, get some more stories about cicadas, I
think. Yeah, we need to explore that a little bit more. Not that I want to hear more about cicadas, but I mean, there has to be some payoff from that whole exchange.
Definitely.
That was
not just a Burger King shameless plug.
Right. Well, let's talk about the meeting. There was a meeting with Peter Gregory and Richard, and of course Jared, the great pants scene, the panic attack scene.
The soaked pants. Wow, that was something I definitely did not see coming.
This episode, this was my favorite one, I think, of the whole season so far. And I am starting to really love Jared more and more. This just through his awkwardness and like the scene. We're digressing a little bit. I'm sorry, guys. Bear with us. When he's talking about the party and he's like, is there a reason I wasn't invited? Like,
were there girls there?
Yeah,
Please,
how
please
was
tell me.
it? Like, such a little cute man. And then that he wears the tiny pants, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna take a back seat because I look like a fool.
He definitely, I think, took on the role of being the younger brother, kind of looking from the outside in a little bit.
He's totally endearing himself to me. I think it's so cute. And, you know, at the meeting, I love that Erlich came in and saved the day.
Of course.
Even after Richard said, you can't be a board member, things were dicey for a little bit, then it all comes full circle. And
right.
Is he the Jobs to Richard's Wozniak?
Ooh, I think he is. I mean, he did a lot for Richard. Richard didn't even have any pants. Let's be real.
So he has Jared to thank and
exactly.
and Erlich for saving his butt.
Definitely.
Quite literally.
Indeed. I think he's wearing the pants in the relationship. If you will.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I think you're right there. So looks like things are good. You know,
things are good for now. Yes. We did see a little bit at the end, though, Peter Gregory and Gavin Belson, that photo on the wall.
Yes. And then we hear there may be a little bit of animosity between the two, which, duh, you have these two huge, polarizing, larger-than-life characters that are the billionaires, and they're battling over this guy's company. Of course it makes sense they have a history. So I can't wait to find out what's coming up with that. So with that, should we get into some predictions?
Ooh.
Sorry, I tapped out. Hold on.
Bear with us.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
We have to hear more about Peter Gregory and Gavin Belson.
Absolutely.
That was just too much of a little teaser cliffhanger at the end. Where do you think they came from?
Ooh, I think because it seems Gavin Belson's company, Hooli, is larger than life. I believe it's the Google clone for the show, so I think he may have screwed over Peter Gregory in a way that he came out financially on top. Obviously, Peter Gregory has a very technical mind, so perhaps he's the Wozniak to Gavin Belson being the Jobs of the
Perhaps.
Steve dynamic, to bring that full circle.
Ding, ding, ding. That might be a little premature, but I think that was pretty spot on.
Thank you.
Look at you go. I have no idea. I think you're pretty spot on there. I'm curious to see if they open up that door next week or if it's going to take a little bit longer to get to that point. We didn't see any of Gavin Belson today.
True. Yeah, we didn't even get a nugget in the beginning. That's right.
I know. So we'll have to wait and see about that. What else is coming? I already, I have such a horrible memory. I already forgot about the next week on Silicon Valley that we just watched 5 seconds ago. What else
it seemed like they were going to do a lot of logo exploration, which is good now that they've settled finally on Pied Piper. I actually did read a little bit on the origin of the name. Interesting.
Yes, I did
Very
too.
Interesting.
I did too. Okay, you tell me what you know.
Well, it was funny because the last episode, I think they referenced it a little bit more, and it's a kind of a strange tale that the Pied Piper played to originally help a town that was infested by rats, and he lured them into a river where basically all of them, all but one, I heard, drowned. And for some reason, he wasn't paid. And so he came back to seek revenge and basically kidnapped all the children by playing his flute the same way.
Right. That is what I said last week.
Right.
Also, but we weren't sure. I had just heard that
We had
somewhere.
to do a little bit of research. Thank you,
and
Internet.
by research, do you mean Wikipedia?
Wikipedia,
yes,
exactly.
me.
Have to
me
plug
too.
Wikipedia.
So if we're wrong, blame Wikipedia.
But how can you? That's like the world's knowledge, is it not, people?
I think so. But I noticed we had some commenters last week that were talking about the rats.
Ah, yes.
But neglected to mention the children. But
kind of
that is a key detail, people.
Part. It's a twist at the end for sure. But
very important and very creepy. And I still want this name to change. I do. True. I was hopeful after last episode that maybe it would still change. Maybe they weren't set in stone. But
right.
I think
I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately. As much as I would like
womp, womp.
easier name to say off the tip of your tongue, but I think we're married now to Pied Piper.
We are married, unfortunately. I am predicting more bromance to come with Erlich and Richard. I am crossing my fingers for that. I love a good bromance. I love DJ Miller.
Definitely.
And I think this dynamic is starting to get really, really hilarious.
He's definitely the main comic relief of the show. Plus, I think he really proved himself, especially in this episode, not just being kind of the dad of the house, but really taking charge in that meeting. I mean, Richard would have fallen flat on his face had not Erlich come in unannounced and kind of stepped up in that way.
Saved the day.
He did. He completely knight in shining armor.
Yes. And I love when he does these redeeming things because he can be such a dick. That's what they always say. They're like, what a dick. He's awful. And then he comes in and he does something so great. And you're like, yay, Erlich.
Exactly. TJ Miller actually did a Q&A on HBO. Speaking of being his character in
we're gonna give predictions right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, let's do it.
I know what you're gonna say, and I'm excited for it.
There's a fan that asked, in what scene or moment or thing coming up that fans should look most forward to? And he responded, when I defend Richard against his abuser by kicking the SHIT out of a 12-year-old. Fans.
For those with sensitive ears.
Of course. Earmuffs, young kids under 12.
That can't spell.
Exactly. Hopefully.
They're probably not watching the show. Anyway.
Or listening. Fans are going to love it because it's so insane. The producers found out a way to justify it comedically. It's amazing. That's all I have to say.
Obviously, Erlich beats up a 12-year-old. Like, of course he does.
I think they can pull it off. The writers are very creative. They've done a lot of research. So, I mean, I've heard that they have multiple...
Research on what? Beating up 12-year-olds?
Well, I bet they're very thorough is all I'm saying. I know that they have very many tech advisors that work in the industry to kind of make sure that everything sounds realistic and not just completely fabricated Hollywood style. So they really wanted to make a show that made sense in its reality. Right. Which is cool. I think that more shows should be doing that. I know that we brought up last time the Paris, Texas, I believe. Yes. Is not the real origin of Campbell's Soup. But
Camden, I believe.
Camden, of course.
I think.
So
that's what I read.
It's good to see that they do most of the due diligence to make sure that their facts are pretty accurate.
And I think, well, in that example specifically, and I think in many examples, it's just comedy. They're just trying to be funny. And when it's not, a technicality with the app or with the company, they just try to have fun with it and say silly things. And we've talked about this before, but TJ Miller always talks about how much he does in improv. And
true, and I like that. I think that adds a lot of an extra element. I mean, it's, after all, it's a comedy, people, so we can go a little bit of astray.
Yes, and we love that. What else is coming up? Gosh.
News. Let's talk about news.
Well, let's talk about news. I have no more information.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Do we want to get back into TJ Miller's Q&A? There's some
some
fun stuff in there.
He did reveal quite a many fact. Apparently, we were talking a lot about him being a method actor with everything. The last show obviously dealt with shrooms, various drug use. It aired on 420.
Did he say that he did shrooms?
No, he did not. But yeah, I don't know if you divulge that much information, but he did speak a little bit about being in method acting, how he came across the beard and that whole situation. Actually, a lot more went into it than I had
That was a funny story. He talked about how it was a collaboration between he and Mike Judge, who is, of course, the creator.
Exactly.
And I guess Mike Judge wanted him to have these big mutton chops, and TJ said, I want to have the mustache and the goatee.
Right.
And so together they came up with this idea, and apparently it's very polarizing. Are you pro the facial hair or against it?
I am very pro the facial
really?
hair. I wish, I believe one of TJ Miller's early renditions of the beard was a very heavy stash. the Conquistador, I believe he
Oh,
referenced, which I would have loved. Any type of super stash with mustache wax will get me for sure.
Yeah,
I appreciate
no.
that. I applaud that, people.
I am
Good work, good
opposed
work.
to facial hair, people, or that facial hair. Some facial hair can look nice on a man, but that is not it. So if you are out there and you're thinking about giving TJ Miller's facial hair a try, don't.
I don't know. It would come November, we can get some TJ Miller fans to really
I'll allow
show
it
up.
during Movember if
Okay.
you can raise more money. And maybe, you know, this Halloween we'll see some Erlichs and
Definitely.
some Silicon Valley crews.
Could be.
I
mean, yeah, it's very easy to duplicate the old hoodie. I think we all have that in our
Cheap
wardrobe.
costume.
Definitely.
Yeah. Another thing I actually didn't realize that was revealed in that Q&A was that TJ Miller gained 30 pounds.
He did,
for
yes.
the role. I
Again.
mean, I definitely knew he was heavier in it.
Right.
But that's crazy.
I know actors we hear all the time gaining weight, losing weight. I think gaining, they unanimously say, is easier and more fun. Mm-hmm. So
But he did lose it, to his credit. He no longer looks like that.
Really?
He just guest hosted Chelsea Lately last week.
Okay. And looking slimmer.
Looking
I
slimmer.
assume?
That was where I actually noticed it. Because when we first started watching Silicon Valley, I was like, oh, he
Yeah,
got a little chubby. And I wasn't sure if it was just him.
Right.
But I saw him on Chelsea Lately a couple nights ago, and he was definitely toned down.
Great. Well, that's
Yeah,
great to
good
see.
for him.
Yeah.
In other news, since we saw you guys last week, season 2 of Silicon Valley has gotten a green light. So,
Yay.
woohoo!
Big applause for that.
More
yes.
episodes to come, so we are really excited about that.
Absolutely.
Too soon, I think, to make predictions for season 2.
True. I believe
But-
there's only 8 episodes this season. Is that correct?
8, yes.
We are at the halfway point.
We are. Isn't that crazy?
No.
Ah,
Luckily,
it's
we have
flying
another season
by.
to look forward to soon, so
Yes.
stay tuned for that.
And also, in other HBO news, of course, Game of Thrones got picked up for 2 seasons. Veep got picked up for
course.
another 1. So, good news all around.
Definitely.
In the
HBO
HBO
is
family.
killing it right now.
They are.
They pretty much have Sunday lockdown.
They do. I watch Mad Men on a Sunday as well, I must admit. But HBO definitely, I think, has the throne,
Ooh,
so to speak.
Touche.
Pun intended, people. Also, do yourselves a favor and check out piedpiper.com. It's a real thing, people, and it is fantastic. Did you check it out? You checked it out, right?
I definitely did. I was pleasantly surprised, for sure. I believe it must have just come out. 'Cause
I think just a few days ago.
It's great. It's actually a pretty good-looking site, too. I mean, they had to
is.
do their prettiest work, I think.
You
And
figure with the subject matter of the show, if they don't have a
Exactly.
really gorgeous website, they're doing something wrong.
For sure. It was a great tribute. I hope they have some little Easter eggs for fans to find, because it's
Yes.
a really cool subject matter, kind of connecting back into that whole world. I mean, they are all very tech-savvy, into the
Right.
webs and the apps. Maybe there'll be an app next week.
Oh
Who
gosh,
knows?
probably.
Yeah.
And then we will get Pied Piper someday, the actual product, I hope, because it sounds kind of cool. But what I actually loved about the website is they have these not character bios, but they're written as if they're real people.
Right.
And they're written as if they are self-written, and they're really, really funny.
They are. They're great bios. Great bios.
I think Dinesh's says, like, Dinesh is blah, 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 great, and Guilfoyle is a piece of garbage. It literally
I
says
did
that.
read that. Oh, also, I read up on Guilfoyle, the actor, and Martin Starr, not Canadian.
No, really?
He was actually born pretty locally, Santa Monica. So,
Sorry, Martin
tribute,
Starr.
but a tribute to your acting, sir.
Yes.
Well done. You have the craft down.
I remember him in Knocked Up
Right.
with Seth Rogen, and God, I haven't seen that movie in so long, but I just felt like, they had that stoner Canadian bromance thing going on.
They could have,
in that
they could
movie,
have.
but
Canadians and Americans can intermingle,
They
Sophie,
can.
though, from time to time.
indeed they can, but only from time to time. Kidding, of course. So that's it for us, I think.
I think so. Until next time.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter. I am at Sophie Schillaci. Where can we find you?
I am at JB_Zimmerman.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll have Jeff back soon, hopefully, but we'll see you guys again next week.
Definitely.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.